The twin suns were setting over the silent wasteland. The wind was dry and heavy, carrying dust and the smell of metal from broken machines scattered across the old road. A small alien girl lay there, her silver skin covered with dirt, her thin arms shaking from the cold. Her name was Leary. She was no more than 8 years old, but her eyes, pale blue and glowing faintly, looked much older, filled with sadness. Hours ago, she had been pushed out of her stepmother's hover car and left on this empty road like trash. The woman's voice still echoed in her head. "You are nothing, just a burden." Now her little heart beat slower and slower. She tried to sit up, but her body refused. The stars were beginning to show, and every sound in the dark made her tremble. She called weakly for her mother, but only the wind answered. Leary hugged her knees and whispered to herself in her alien language, trying not to cry. She wished she had someone, anyone, to hold her. The last of her energy was fading away when she saw something move in the distance. A shadow. At first she thought it was another drone, maybe her stepmother's guard coming to finish her. But as the shadow came closer, she saw a man. A human. He was tall but thin, wearing a torn brown jacket and a scarf that barely covered his face. His boots were cracked, his hands rough and blackened by work. A small metal bag hung on his side. He walked slowly, tiredly, like someone who hadn't eaten for days. His name was Eli. He was a scrap collector, a man who searched through the old battlefields for metal, wires, or anything he could sell for a few credits. The world didn't care much for humans anymore. Most of them lived in poor zones, surviving day by day. When Eli first saw Leary, he thought she was a broken android, one of those half-metal child bots. But then she moved her head, and he saw her eyes glowing softly in the fading light. He froze. He looked around, making sure no one else was near. There were stories, terrible ones, about aliens abandoning unwanted children. But no one dared to help them. The alien laws were strict. Humans who interfered could be punished, even killed. Eli took a step closer. "Hey, are you alive?" he asked in a low voice. Leary blinked slowly, her lips trembling. She didn't understand his words, but she saw his face, not cruel, not angry, just worried. "Can you hear me?" Eli crouched beside her. He noticed her small hands shaking. Her clothes were torn, one shoe missing. She looked more like a ghost than a child. When he touched her shoulder, she flinched in fear. "Hey, easy now," he said softly. "I'm not gonna hurt you." His voice was rough but kind. He pulled out a small water can from his bag and placed it near her lips. She hesitated, then drank, her throat making small, weak sounds. "That's it," he murmured. "You'll be fine." She looked up at him with wide eyes. For a moment they just stared at each other, two strangers from different worlds, both poor, both forgotten. Then she whispered something so soft that even Eli almost missed it. "Don't leave me." The words were broken, her accent strange, but he understood. His heart tightened. He looked at the horizon. Night was coming fast, and this place wasn't safe. There were scavengers, drones, and worse things that hunted in the dark. He could walk away. He should walk away. Helping her would bring trouble, maybe death. But something inside him, something he thought he lost long ago, wouldn't let him leave her. With a sigh, he said quietly, "All right, kid. I got you." He took off his old scarf and wrapped it around her. Then carefully he lifted her small body into his arms. She was so light it broke his heart. The road ahead was long and rough. His legs hurt, his back burned, but he kept walking. The little alien girl's head rested against his shoulder, her breathing slow and weak. As they passed through the ruins, a small mechanical eye blinked in the shadows. A drone, watching them. Eli didn't notice. But far away on a shining cruiser, a woman with cold golden eyes looked at the screen. "There she is," the stepmother said, "and with a human. How interesting." Back on the ground, Eli reached his tiny shelter, an old metal hut built from shipwreck pieces. He laid Leary down on his bedroll, gave her half a piece of stale bread, and sat beside her quietly. She looked at him, then smiled faintly for the first time. It was small, tired, but real. Eli rubbed his face, sighing. "Guess it's just you and me now, huh?" Outside, the wind howled. Inside, for the first time in years, a human and an alien shared the same warmth. Two lost souls brought together by chance, or maybe by fate. And somewhere in the dark, the red light of the drone blinked again, recording everything. The night was long and heavy. Cold air blew through the holes in the metal walls of Eli's old shelter. The place was small. Only one room made from shipwreck pieces, broken glass, and rusted pipes. It looked like it could fall apart any second, but to Eli, it was home. Leary lay under a blanket that once belonged to him. She shivered, her silver skin shining faintly in the dim light of a small lantern. Eli sat near the door holding an old plasma torch like a weapon. He wasn't sure what scared him more, the scavengers outside or the idea that he had just brought an alien child into his home. He kept asking himself why. Why did he help her? He had nothing. No money, no food, not even hope. Yet when he saw her lying in the dust, his heart didn't let him walk away. Leary moved a little, making a small sound. Eli looked at her, softening. "You're safe here, kid," he whispered, though he knew she didn't understand his language. Still, she opened her eyes slowly and looked around. Her gaze stopped at the ceiling, covered in hanging wires and dripping water. The smell of oil and rust filled the air, but for the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. Eli walked to a small shelf and took out an old metal cup. He filled it with warm water and handed it to her. She took it with both hands and drank slowly, her tiny fingers shaking. "Easy now," he said quietly. "No one's going to hurt you here." Leary tried to speak, but her voice came out as a soft murmur in her alien tongue. Eli didn't understand, but her eyes said everything: fear, confusion, and a small spark of trust. He smiled gently. "You don't have to talk. Just rest." Outside, the desert winds screamed like ghosts. Somewhere in the distance, a drone hummed, searching. But inside the metal walls, time seemed to slow down. Eli sat near her again. He looked at her strange clothes, the marks on her skin, signs of a wealthy alien family. She wasn't just a random child. She was someone's daughter. Someone powerful. He sighed. "What did they do to you, kid?" Leary didn't answer. Her eyes drifted toward a broken metal toy on the floor, a small spinning top made from junk parts. She reached for it, touched it gently, and smiled. Eli saw that smile and felt something stir in his chest, something warm and painful at the same time. It reminded him of another smile years ago, his own daughter's before the war took her away. He looked away quickly, pretending to fix his lantern. "You can keep it," he said. "The toy." Leary held the little top in her hand, spinning it slowly. For the first time, a small laugh escaped her lips, light and soft like wind chimes. Eli chuckled. "Guess you like it, huh?" But that peaceful moment didn't last long. A sudden beep echoed through the air, faint but sharp. Eli's heart froze. He turned off the lantern instantly. The shelter sank into darkness. He grabbed his old rifle and peered through a crack in the wall. A red light was moving outside, slow, steady, scanning the ground. "Damn it," he whispered. "They found her." Leary sat up, frightened. "Eli?" she said, her voice shaking, finally saying his name for the first time. He looked at her, shocked. "You know my name?" She nodded weakly. She must have heard him say it earlier to himself. Eli moved fast. "Quiet now. Don't move." He crawled to the back wall and pushed away an old metal plate, revealing a narrow tunnel. "We gotta go," he said. The red light outside stopped, right at his door. He held Leary's hand tightly, pulling her toward the tunnel. She stumbled but followed him, clutching the little spinning top in her hand. The door creaked. A cold robotic voice spoke from outside. Subject located. "Capture alive." Eli cursed under his breath and pushed Leary through the tunnel. "Go, don't stop." They crawled through the narrow metal pipe, hearing the heavy thuds of drones breaking into the shelter behind them. Sparks lit the darkness. Leary screamed softly as a blast of energy hit the wall near her feet. "Keep going," Eli shouted. Almost there. Finally, they reached the end of the tunnel and fell out into a wide junkyard, filled with old machines and broken ships. The stars above looked like silver fireflies against the black sky. Eli pulled her up. His breathing was hard, his heart pounding. He could see the glow of drones far behind them. Leary grabbed his sleeve, pointing toward a pile of twisted metal. "Hide," she whispered. They ducked under it just as two drones flew overhead, scanning the area with red beams. Eli held her close, one hand over her mouth to keep her quiet. They could hear the drones talking to each other in static voices. No life signs detected. Continue search. When the lights finally faded, Eli let out a deep breath. He looked at Leary. She was shaking, but she didn't cry. Instead, she whispered something he could barely hear. "Thank you, Eli." He smiled tiredly. "Don't thank me yet, kid. We're not safe." He looked at the horizon where faint lights shimmered. The old mining tunnels. Maybe they could hide there. Maybe they'd survive another day. As they walked toward the dark hills, Eli thought to himself, he was just a poor man with nothing to offer. But somehow tonight he felt richer than he had in years. Because in his arms, hope was alive again, and far above, the stepmother's voice echoed through her ship's speakers. "Find them both. The human dies. The girl is mine." The morning sky burned red as Eli and Leary ran through the endless field of metal wrecks. The air smelled of rust, oil, and smoke from faraway fires. The ground under their feet was sharp with broken steel and glass. Above them, the twin suns rose slowly, lighting up the sea of dead machines. Old ships, tanks, and forgotten weapons from wars long ago. Eli's boots scraped against metal as he pulled Leary forward. "Keep close, kid," he said, panting. "Don't fall behind." Leary nodded, her small hand clutching his tightly. Her silver skin glowed faintly under the sun, making her easy to spot. Eli quickly tore a piece from his jacket and wrapped it around her head like a hood. "That'll hide your shine," he muttered. Behind them, faint hums grew louder, drones. Their red lights blinked like hungry eyes in the distance, moving fast across the sky. "They're tracking us," Eli said under his breath. "We need to lose them before they call in the soldiers." Leary looked scared but brave. "Where we go?" she asked in broken human words. Eli pointed toward the horizon where black smoke rose from the ground. "The old refinery. If we make it there, the heat will mess with their sensors." She didn't fully understand, but she trusted him. She always did. They moved quickly between piles of broken ships. Every sound, every echo of metal, made Eli's heart jump. He could feel the drones getting closer. Suddenly, one of them flew overhead. A red beam scanned the ground, passing just a few feet from where they hid behind a rusted engine. Eli pulled Leary close, covering her mouth gently. She held her breath, her little fingers trembling against his arm. The drone hovered for a few seconds, then zoomed away. Eli exhaled slowly. That was close. But luck never lasted long. A second drone appeared, this one lower and faster. It spotted movement. A sharp alarm screamed through the air. "Run!" Eli shouted. They sprinted, feet pounding on steel, hearts racing. The drones fired stun shots, blue energy blasts that burned holes in the metal around them. Sparks flew everywhere. Leary cried out as one blast grazed her leg. Eli grabbed her, lifting her into his arms without slowing down. He jumped over a fallen wing, slid under a broken pipe, and ran until his lungs burned. The refinery was closer now, a massive structure of smoke and fire. Heat waves shimmered in the air, bending light and confusing scanners. "This way," Eli shouted, diving behind a giant turbine. He set Leary down and checked her leg. A small burn, nothing deep. He tore off his sleeve and wrapped it around the wound. She looked at him with watery eyes. "You help me again?" He smiled weakly. "Yeah, seems like that's my new job." For a few seconds, the world went quiet again, only the wind and distant hums. But above the clouds, a massive shadow moved. Leary looked up, her eyes wide with fear. "Mother's ship," she whispered. Eli followed her gaze. His stomach dropped. It was huge. A Royal-class alien cruiser, silver and black, shaped like a crescent. It hovered silently, its engines glowing blue. "Damn," Eli muttered. "She really wants you back." Inside the cruiser, the stepmother stood before a holographic screen. Her golden eyes were sharp with anger. "That human thinks he can hide from me? Bring the ground units. Burn the wreck fields if you must. I want my property back." Her voice echoed through the comms. Soldiers began to drop from the ship like dark rain. Armored alien hunters with long energy rifles. Back on the ground, Eli could hear their boots clanging in the distance. "Leary," he said quickly, "listen to me. If anything happens to me, you run. Don't stop, you hear?" She shook her head fiercely. "No!" "You come too." Eli smiled sadly. "You're a stubborn one." They began moving again, deeper into the wreck fields, weaving through tight spaces and old tunnels. The smell of burnt metal filled their lungs. Eli could feel the heat from the refinery nearby, their only chance to disappear. Suddenly, a sound, crunch, came from behind them. Eli turned fast, gun ready. A scavenger appeared, a human, dirty and desperate, holding a small blade. "What do we have here?" he sneered. An alien brat and her pet human. She's worth a fortune. Before Eli could react, the scavenger lunged. Eli blocked with his arm, pain shooting through his shoulder. They struggled in the dirt, metal clanging around them. Leary screamed, picking up a broken pipe and hitting the man's leg. Eli punched the scavenger hard, knocking him out cold. "Thanks, kid," he said, breathing hard. She dropped the pipe, shaking. "Bad man?" "Yeah," Eli said. "World's full of them." They kept moving, the sky now dark with storm clouds. Lightning flashed over the metal mountains. In the distance, the refinery lights burned bright, promising safety. As they climbed a final ridge, Leary stopped and touched Eli's arm. "Eli, they still come." He looked back, dozens of red lights closing in fast. He could hear the deep hum of the cruiser overhead. Eli tightened his grip on his gun and whispered, "Then we make our stand." Leary's eyes glowed softly in the dark. "I'm not afraid," she said. Eli smiled. "Good. Then let's show them what a poor human and a lost alien can do." As thunder roared across the sky, they ran into the blazing heart of the refinery, where danger and destiny waited for them both. The refinery was a maze of smoke, heat, and echoing noise. The air shimmered from the burning fires of old fuel tanks. Metal pipes ran across the ground like the bones of some dead giant. Eli and Leary crawled through a gap in the wall and fell into a narrow tunnel. Steam hissed above their heads. The heat was so strong that sweat rolled down Eli's neck, mixing with the dust on his skin. "Stay close, kid," he said quietly. "They won't look for us here. Too hot for them." Leary followed him, her small hand holding his sleeve. The noise outside faded. For the first time in hours, they could breathe. The tunnel led them to a dark underground room, once a storage chamber for workers. Rusted lockers lined the walls. A few were open, their contents long gone. Eli closed the entrance with a metal plate and dropped his bag on the floor. "We'll rest here," he said, breathing heavily. Leary sat on the cold ground, hugging her knees. Her silver skin glowed softly in the shadows. Eli noticed how pale she looked. Her energy was fading again. He opened his bag and found only a half piece of dry bread and an empty water bottle. "Guess it's not much," he muttered, "but it's all I've got." He broke the bread in half and gave the bigger piece to Leary. She looked at it, then back at him, shaking her head. "You eat," she said softly. Eli smiled. "I've had worse days, kid. You eat it." After a moment, she nodded and took a small bite. Then very carefully, she broke a piece off and handed it back to him. "Share." Eli stared at the small piece of bread in his hand and couldn't help but laugh softly. "You're something else, kid." They ate together in silence, the firelight flickering through the cracks in the walls. It was a strange sight, a poor human and a lost alien child, sharing the smallest meal in a dying world. When they finished, Leary touched the pendant hanging around Eli's neck, an old metal disc shaped like a star. It was the only thing he had left from his daughter. Leary tilted her head. "What, this?" Eli looked down, his eyes sad. "It's a memory. From someone I lost a long time ago." Leary frowned. "She gone?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "Long gone." Leary reached into her torn pocket and pulled out something shiny, a tiny crystal shard glowing faint blue. She placed it in his hand. "Gift," she whispered. "For you," Eli blinked. "A gift? Why?" She smiled faintly. "You good. You saved me." For a moment, Eli couldn't speak. He looked at the small glowing crystal in his rough, dirty hands. It was warm, like holding a piece of light. "Thank you, Leary," he said softly. "That's the best gift I've ever had." He placed the crystal beside his pendant and smiled. In that moment, the gap between human and alien didn't matter. They were just two souls trying to survive. But peace never lasted long. Outside, faint thuds echoed. Footsteps. Heavy, mechanical, getting closer. Eli's heart jumped. He grabbed his rifle and motioned to Leary. "Hide, now!" She crawled behind an old locker while he crouched near the door, finger on the trigger. The sound grew louder. Voices in an alien language echoed down the tunnel. He could see their shadows through the cracks, two soldiers in dark armor scanning with red lights. "Come on," one said in a deep metallic tone. "The drones tracked energy here." Eli held his breath, waiting. The door creaked. A flashlight beam entered the room, slicing through the darkness. It stopped just inches from Leary's hiding spot. Eli didn't think. He fired. The gunshot thundered through the chamber. One soldier fell instantly, sparks bursting from his armor. The other turned and shouted, firing back. Energy bolts burned holes into the walls. Eli rolled behind a pipe, shooting again. Leary screamed, covering her ears. The noise was deafening. Finally, silence. Eli looked around. Both soldiers were down. Smoke filled the room. His hand shook as he reloaded his weapon. "We need to move," he said. "Now." Leary ran to him and hugged his arm tightly. "You hurt?" He shook his head. "Just tired." As they stepped out into the open tunnels again, Leary's small voice broke the silence. "Eli, why help me?" "I know your people." He looked down at her, his expression soft. "Because someone should have helped me once and no one did." Leary didn't answer, but her eyes shone with tears. She took off a small metal ring from her finger and slipped it into his hand. "Now we same," she said. "You have my light. I have your warmth." Eli smiled, a tired, proud smile. "Yeah, kid. We're the same now." They kept walking deeper into the tunnels. The air was thick, the sound of machines distant, but neither of them felt the cold anymore, because between them something new had started to grow. Trust, friendship, maybe something stronger. Above them, the alien stepmother stared at a holographic screen. Her soldiers were dead, but her scanners had tracked the humans' life signs. Her lips curled into a cruel smile. "So," she whispered, "you think you can hide, human? You'll learn what happens when you touch what belongs to me." Down below, unaware of the danger, Eli and Leary walked hand in hand through the dark, two tiny sparks of warmth in a world made of rust. The storm came without warning. The sky turned dark as red clouds rolled over the wasteland, lightning flashing across the broken towers of the old refinery. The sound of thunder mixed with the distant roar of engines, alien dropships closing in. Eli and Leary ran through a half-collapsed tunnel, their shadows dancing on the walls as fire from above lit up the cracks. The ground trembled under their feet. "They found us again," Eli said, panting, gripping his old rifle tighter. "They're not giving up this time." Leary looked up, her small face pale and frightened. "Mother's men?" "Yeah," he answered. "And there's a lot of them." They reached the end of the tunnel and stepped into the open, a wide, ruined area filled with broken cranes and fuel tanks. The air smelled like burnt metal. Eli could see movement in the distance, soldiers in black armor spreading out, their eyes glowing red in the smoke. Eli knelt down beside Leary. "Listen to me, kid. You stay low. Don't run unless I tell you. Understand?" She nodded slowly, clutching the glowing crystal he had kept safe for her. "I stay with you." He looked at her and smiled weakly. "You always do." Then the first shot came, a bolt of blue energy slammed into a wall near them, bursting it into pieces. Eli grabbed Leary and pulled her behind a broken metal beam. Sparks rained down like fiery snow. "They're surrounding us," he said quietly. "No way out." Leary looked at him, her voice trembling. "You go, Stay," Eli turned sharply. "Not a chance." "I'm not leaving you." She shook her head. "They want me, not you. If I go, you safe." Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "Kid, I've lost one child already. I'm not losing another." Her lips parted, confused. "Child?" He looked away. "Yeah, she was small. Just like you." For a moment, silence filled the air. Only the soft hum of machines in the distance. Leary touched his rough hand and whispered, "You have heart of light, Eli." Before he could reply, another explosion shook the ground. The enemy was closer now, firing through the fog. Eli raised his rifle and returned fire. His weapon was old and weak, but every shot bought them a few more seconds. He aimed carefully, hitting one soldier in the shoulder. The others shouted and spread out, a voice echoed from above, cold and sharp, her stepmother's. "Human, you cannot win. Give me the girl and I may let you die quickly." Eli spat on the ground. "Yeah, come take her yourself." The voice laughed through the speakers. Brave words from a dying man. Leary's eyes glowed faintly. She felt something deep inside her chest, a strange warmth like a heartbeat that wasn't her own. She didn't understand it, but it called to her. Eli stood, firing again. One by one, the soldiers pushed closer. A blast hit the ground near him, throwing him backward. He coughed, blood on his lips. Leary crawled to him, her small hands glowing brighter. "Eli!" she cried. He looked at her weakly. "Stay." "Down." But she didn't. She placed her hands on his chest, tears rolling down her cheeks. "No hurt, please, no hurt." The light from her palms grew stronger, soft, blue and warm, The air around them shimmered. The burns on his arm began to heal slowly. Eli stared, speechless. What are you doing? Leary shook her head. No, it just happens. A soldier spotted them and aimed his gun. Target locked. Before he could fire, Leary turned her head, and the ground around her exploded in light. A wave of energy burst out from her body, knocking every soldier flat. The air screamed, the metal melted, and the sky flashed white. Eli shielded his face from the blast. When the light faded, smoke filled the air. Dozens of soldiers lay unconscious or broken, their armor cracked. Leary collapsed beside him, breathing hard. Eli stared at her, shocked. Kid, and what was that? She looked up weakly. My people. Call it soul fire. Only strong blood can make it. I didn't know I had it, Eli smiled faintly. Well, it sure came in handy. He helped her sit up, his hands shaking. You saved us, kid. She leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering, You saved me first. But their moment of peace didn't last. The sound of engines filled the air again. From the sky, the stepmother's cruiser appeared. Larger, darker, its weapons glowing. Through the loudspeakers, her cold voice returned. Enough games. You've hurt my soldiers. Now you will both suffer. Eli looked up at the sky, gripping his rifle tighter, though he knew it was useless. Guess she's serious this time. He turned to Leary. You need to run. She shook her head. No, I stay. Leary, I mean it. He shouted. You run and don't look back. Tears filled her glowing eyes. I can't. You my family now. Eli froze, his throat tight. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she deserved more than a broken man like him, but he couldn't. Instead, he said softly, Then we stand together. As the cruiser's lights focused on them, Eli stood tall beside Leary. The wind whipped around them, carrying dust and fire, the human who had nothing and the alien child who had lost everything, now side by side, ready to face the storm. In the distance, thunder rolled again, and the stepmother's voice whispered one final command. Kill the human. Bring me the girl. Eli raised his gun, looked at Leary, and said, Guess this is it, kid. Let's make it count. And together they faced the coming fire. Smoke filled the air like thick fog. The ground still glowed where Leary's power had burned through metal and rock. The battle had stopped for now, but the silence was heavy, the kind that came before something worse. Eli knelt beside Leary, who was still weak from the blast. Her small hands trembled as she tried to breathe. The glow under her skin flickered like a dying flame. You've done enough, Eli said softly. You need to rest. Leary shook her head slowly. They come again. I feel them. Eli looked at the horizon. She was right. He could already see the silver lights of the alien cruiser moving closer, its engines shaking the ground. He sighed and looked around. They were near the border of the old wastelands, a place humans avoided. The air there was toxic, full of radiation and ghosts from the old wars, but it was also the one place alien scanners couldn't reach. If we make it there, he said, they can't follow. It's our only chance. Leary touched his arm weakly. But you, human, breathe that air, he smiled a little. I'll manage. I've breathed worse, she frowned, tears in her bright eyes. You lie. Eli looked away, his silence giving her the answer she feared. They both knew the truth. The wasteland would kill him, but it might save her. He stood up and checked his weapon, only a few bullets left. His hands were shaking from exhaustion, but his eyes were calm. Listen to me, kid. When we reach the edge, I want you to run. Don't stop no matter what happens, Leary's voice cracked. No, I stay with you. Eli turned to her, his voice gentle but firm. Leary, I've lost everything once. I'm not losing you too. You're the reason I kept going. The reason I still fight. She shook her head, sobbing. You give me life, Eli, I give it back. That fair? He crouched and wiped her tears with his rough hand. You're too good for this world, kid. Then he smiled faintly. But maybe you can make it better. Before she could answer, the ground shook again. Red beams cut through the smoke as the alien soldiers advanced, their voices echoing through speakers. Human, surrender the girl. You cannot escape, Eli gritted his teeth. They never stopped talking. He picked up Leary in his arms. Hold on, they ran. Through the wreckage, through fire and ash, their shadows danced between the flames. The cruiser followed above, its lights like angry eyes. Almost there, Eli shouted, his lungs burning. The wasteland was just ahead. a gray sea of dust glowing faint green from radiation. The air shimmered with heat and death. Leary looked at it and shook her head. You go there. You die, maybe, he said, but you'll live. No, she screamed, grabbing his jacket. I no leave you. He stopped, breathing hard. The soldiers were closing in, their weapons ready. He had seconds to choose. Then something changed in Leary's eyes. Determination, bright and fierce. She stepped down from his arms. We both go, she said softly. Leary, together, she said again. Before he could stop her, she took his hand. The small glowing crystal she had once given him started to shine brighter. A strange warmth surrounded them both. The air around them shimmered and twisted like water. What's happening? Eli gasped. My power, she whispered. It protect. I share with you. He could feel it, her heartbeat inside his chest matching his own. The pain in his lungs eased. The burning air no longer hurt. He stared at her, stunned. You're saving me, she smiled weakly. You saved me first. Now I save you. Before Eli could answer, a loud explosion tore through the ground. A squad of soldiers appeared behind them, firing. He pushed Leary down and fired back, hitting one. Another blast hit near his leg, throwing him off balance. Leary screamed his name and reached out, her energy flashing again. A blue wave burst from her hand, knocking the attackers away, but she fell to her knees, too weak to stand. Eli crawled to her, his arm bleeding. Come on, kid. Stay with me. She looked up at him with glassy eyes. Eli, promise me. What? Promise you live, even if... His heart broke. Don't say that. You'll make it. We both will. Tears rolled down her face. Promise, she whispered again. He took her hand tightly. I promise. Then he lifted her once more and carried her into the wasteland. The cruiser's lights faded behind them as the poisoned winds howled. Each step felt heavier than the last. His vision blurred. The ground beneath him cracked and shimmered with green mist. But he kept moving, one step at a time. When his legs finally gave out, he fell to his knees, still holding her close. She looked at him, weak but smiling. We safe now. He looked at her glowing eyes and smiled through the pain. Yeah, kid. We're safe. Above them, the sky turned a deep orange as the cruiser stopped at the border. The stepmother's voice came through once more, cold, distant, furious. You can't hide forever, human. I will find you. Eli looked up at the sky and whispered, Try me. Leary's small hand rested over his heart. Her glow spread through his chest again, soft and peaceful. Together, they sat under the poisoned sky, one human and one alien. Both broken, both alive, and for that moment, they didn't care about the war, the ships, or the danger. They only knew one thing, and they had each other. The wasteland stretched for miles, endless gray dust, broken bones of machines and dead air that shimmered under two weak suns. Nothing lived here. Nothing should have. But somewhere deep within that dead land, inside the shadow of an old cargo hull, two figures sat close together, a poor human and a little alien girl. Eli's body was weak. His skin burned from the radiation, his breath slow and heavy. Every movement felt like lifting a mountain. Still, he smiled at Leary, who sat beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. How are you feeling, kid? He asked softly. She looked up at him, eyes bright and gentle. Tired? But okay, you? Eli chuckled weakly. Been better. He coughed, blood staining his scarf. Leary's smile faded. She pressed her small hands on his chest, her palms glowing blue. I heal you, she whispered. Please work. He placed his hand over hers, stopping her gently. Save your strength, Leary. You need it more than me. Tears gathered in her eyes. No, you help me live. I help you live. Eli shook his head. That's not how it works, kid. Some of us were meant to give, not take. She didn't understand, but her heart hurt. I don't want you go. He smiled, tired, warm, full of love. Hey, look at me. I'm not going anywhere, okay? I'll be right here. She leaned her head against his shoulder, silent. The wind outside howled like ghosts, blowing dust across the old hull. Inside, the blue glow from her crystal lit their faces softly. Hours passed. Leary finally fell asleep in his arms, her breathing light and calm. Eli stared at her, brushing her silver hair away from her face. You're gonna be okay, he whispered. You'll make it out of this world. Someone's gotta see how beautiful you turned out. He looked at the little glowing crystal she had given him, still hanging on his neck. It pulsed faintly, almost alive. For a long time, he just sat there, listening to her heartbeat and the soft wind outside. Then, footsteps. Far in the distance, through the thick air, he saw movement, black shapes walking slowly toward them. Drones, maybe soldiers, maybe death itself. Eli took a deep breath. He knew what he had to do. He laid Leary gently down and stood up, his legs trembling. He looked at her one last time and whispered, "Sleep, kid. Dream of better worlds." He stepped out of the broken hull, holding his old rifle. The wind hit his face like knives. The shapes grew clearer now, armored soldiers scanning the area. One of them raised a weapon. Human detected, alive capture. Eli smiled sadly. "Yeah, come and try." He fired the first shot. The sound echoed through the wasteland like thunder. The soldiers fired back, bright bolts cutting the air. Eli dodged behind an engine block, returning fire again and again. Each shot burned his shoulder, but he didn't stop. "Come on," he shouted. "You want her, you'll have to go through me." A plasma bolt hit his side and he fell to one knee. Pain spread through his body like fire. He coughed again, blood dripping down his chin. Still he stood. He aimed one last time and fired. The last soldier fell. Then everything went quiet. Eli dropped his weapon, falling to his knees. His vision blurred. The red clouds above looked almost beautiful. He smiled faintly. "Guess that's it, huh?" Behind him, Leary woke up. She looked around, panic filling her chest. "Eli?" she called, her voice breaking. She ran outside and froze. He was lying in the dust, still smiling, his hand clutching the glowing crystal. She knelt beside him, shaking his shoulder. "Eli, wake up. Please?" No answer. Her tears fell on his face, glowing as they touched his skin. "You said you not go," she whispered. "You said—" She pressed her hands over his heart, her power flaring bright blue, stronger than ever before. The ground trembled, light spreading through the air like wings, but Eli didn't move. Leary cried until her voice broke. Then she gently took the crystal from his hand and placed it over his heart. "You gave me everything," she whispered. "Now I give you peace." She sat beside him until the suns rose. When the first light touched the wasteland, the air shimmered. And something beautiful happened. The blue glow from her crystal spread around Eli's body, wrapping him in soft light. His face looked peaceful, almost asleep. Leary looked up at the sky. "Goodbye, Eli," she said softly. "You had nothing, but you gave me everything." Then she walked into the light, leaving footprints that glowed faintly behind her. Years later, across the galaxy, stories were told of a small alien girl who became a great leader, wise, kind, and brave. She built homes for humans and aliens alike, teaching them that compassion was stronger than power. And in her room, on a golden stand, she kept one old metal pendant, shaped like a star, and beside it, a glowing blue crystal. Whenever someone asked her where they came from, she would smile softly and say, "From the human who had nothing, but gave me everything."